Texting.
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 Texting. Texting. Texting. Texting.
Texting.
Texting.
Mark, Will, and Tomek present
Texting.
Please mind the gap between the train and the platform.
Hello, all you textual deviants, and welcome to another episode of Texting with me, Tomek, in... Wait, where's Mark? Okay, Actually, this is a special episode, and it's a travelogue prepared just for you, listener, as I document my week-long trip to London. Interspersed with my reflections and daily audio diaries, you'll hear Mark as he recounts his trip to London, his experience with his son in Taipei this week, and other interviews, musical numbers, poetry recitations. We've got all kinds of good stuff for you in this episode. So, without further ado, buckle up and please enjoy this audio journey to the Big Smoke. Good morning, Mark. It's 7:52 a.m., March 3rd, 2023, and I've just left the St. Petersburg coach station, heading for Helsinki via the precarious border. Had a little bit of a struggle making it on time. Was walking one direction from the metro station, doubted myself, started walking back, asked someone else and then walked back the first way. So got to the coach station about 10 minutes before the coach was leaving, and but I made it on time. I'm in seat 13 of the Lux Express. Yeah, it looks like mostly Russians on board. It's about a half full coach, very comfortable. And yeah, I've got a monitor in front of me, USB, Wi-Fi, all that stuff. And yeah, next stop is the Russian border. Let's go.
Testing 1 2. Testing 1 2.
So I've just crossed the border into Finland, waiting for the other passengers to come through the Finnish border so we can get back on the bus. It's a beautiful blue sky day. Sun is shining. It's just fresh, not too cold at all. People are just basking in the sun. And this was my smoothest border procedure, well, of late, for sure. Expected much worse, wasn't singled out at any point. Very smooth on the Finnish border, but that's kind of expected because it's like we're kind of ostensibly more on friendlier terms, I guess, Brits and Finns, although all of this is quite absurd. My passport was looked at about 4 times, but not me exceptionally, coming across the Russian border. Different people coming onto the bus and just asking for it, doing head counts, but the only thing I was asked was my job, and I tried to be charming. So yeah, kind of a familiar feeling that I get sometimes when I leave Russia, which is like, suddenly it feels freer once I've left, and I wonder why I'm in Russia, but then I have other voices that respond to that, and with plenty of reasons why I do live in Russia, and I do love Russia. So that's my quick update from the border. I don't even know the name of the nearest town, but looking forward to a long wait at Helsinki airport, so hopefully it's comfortable, and maybe I can even edit our Scarface episode. Peace.
Helsinki, Finland. I was there in 2019, and I wrote about that experience in Postcards from the Nordics. You're just making it too easy for me to promote my shit, aren't you?
So now I'll pose a question to you, Mark. What's your most memorable or most challenging border experience?
My most challenging border experience would probably be the one that occurred when you and I, went from Korea to Russia. I mean, just getting the visa was an unbelievably tedious experience. We were answering questions like, have you ever been associated with a terrorist organization? Have you ever built a bomb? Have you ever been convicted of a terrorist crime? I was like answering questions about my ex-wife's mother. That was insane. And then after we finally got the visa, I remember we took the ferry from South Korea to Vladivostok, Russia. Actually, it wasn't Vladivostok. It was some little border town. We get off the ferry. We don't know where we are. We end up in some shack, some ramshackle construction with very surly border patrol agents looking at our passports and wondering what the hell we're doing there. And then I think we met a couple of Russian ladies that gave us a ride to Vladivostok from whatever that little shit town we arrived in was. And if they had not turned up, what would we have done? No idea. So that was pretty crazy. I just thought of another pretty intense border experience. It was when I was returning to the States from Amsterdam. I was grilled by one of the customs agents who wanted to know all about my activities there. He thought for some reason I was smuggling drugs out of the country. But I explained, no, I just partook of the drugs legally while I was there. He said, oh, so you went to the coffee shops and so on. I'm like, yeah. And he sneered at me, frowned, but let me go, fortunately. I have a question for you, too. Apparently, Liliana is not with you. You're taking different routes to London. What's that about? Is that for visa reasons? What's going on with that? Please explain.
Hey bro, I appreciate you recounting our epic trip from South Korea to Vladivostok. And remember that whet my appetite for future forays into the Russian Federation. I'm currently at Reykjavik Airport. Wait, what? I'm in Helsinki, son. Okay. I don't even know. Am I? Yeah, I'm in Helsinki. Okay. So yeah, I've just been sitting in a coffee shop. The prices here are absurdly high. I edited a script for my friend Vera Burdick. Shoutouts to Vera. And then worked on our Scarface episode 27. And I'm currently in a queue through security, which is backed up because of some issues with some machines. Wanted to address your question about why my wife and I are traveling separately, and predictably this is a direct result of the political situation. So Russians can no longer enter border countries like Finland, Estonia, and so on, even with the Schengen. Liliana doesn't have a Schengen, so that wouldn't apply anyway, but yeah. And of course, before last February, there were plenty of non-stop flights to London, but now all of European airspace is closed, so Liliana is doing what many Russians do now, flying through Istanbul. It turns out to be much pricier than it would have been in the past, and I'm going separately just to save money. My flight from Helsinki is around $100 to London, and her flight is probably closer to $600, so just not practical for us both to fly that way. But thankfully we're flying to the same airport, Stansted, and arriving within 40 minutes of one another, so yeah, we'll be in each other's arms in no time. Flight delayed, feeling pretty dead and emotionally as well.
I'm headed to the airport now myself. My elder son is flying into Taipei from the States on his way to Japan. He'll have a 4 or 5 day layover here with his father. It's a bit too early in the morning for me to try to explain exactly why I consider certain things worth recording, but I guess I want to express awe at the fact that this boy from Texas, currently living in Taipei, is on his way to the airport to meet his half-Japanese son from the States, who's coming to stay with him for a few days before he visits his family in Japan. And all of this is being communicated by that boy from Texas to a boy from Arizona who, based in Russia, is now on his way to the UK. What a world we live in. And that boy from Texas and that boy from Arizona met in South Korea, of all places, and they're now communicating by means of little telephones that they carry around in their pockets. Crazy. I mean, in some ways, our current reality is more sci-fi than a Philip K. Dick novel, isn't it?
It's 11:48 p.m. in London. Just landed at Stansted. Exhausted. Had to deal with a lot of my demons because I'm so tired. They're not pleasant. Gonna try to put on a happier face now and meet my wife.
How are we doing in terms of content? I feel like if you string all my voice memos together, you'll find that I've babbled for at least 5 or 10 minutes. Good job, Mark.
Good morning, Mark. I loved your messages, your ties to the sci-fi reality, the way that you've weaved in your son's trip, which I think could be an interesting sub-narrative. And I agree. It's bizarre that we communicate through these little metal plates or black mirrors. We are currently waiting for a bus to take us into the city proper. We stayed the night at a Days Inn next to Stansted Airport. Stansted is pretty much like the grimiest airport in London, and Liliana articulately said it reminded her of being in a garbage because there were so many people sprawled out, not even on chairs, just lying. It's quite dirty, and I think this is the new reality that many traditionally ethnic Brits complain about when it comes to England. I resist that anti-immigrant narrative, of course, my mom being an immigrant herself. But there's no question that certain things have declined in terms of standards in the UK. And as we were eating breakfast, and I glanced at the news ticker, every story was about the cost of living crisis. How people were surviving on a house on wheels, or were subsisting, were existing only on coffee and tea. I don't know, maybe I didn't understand that one completely. Liliana had her first experience with corn this morning. I'm not sure if you know what corn is, but it's like a fungi-based meat substitute that's quite popular in the UK especially. I had a sausage, bacon and egg bap. Bap not as in rice, the Korean meaning, but a roll basically, and then we had a couple hash browns. So we're hoping on going near the Emirates Stadium today. We couldn't afford tickets to see the Arsenal play, but I at least want us to soak up the atmosphere. We're gonna meet up with my friend Aiden from St. Petersburg. Oh no, you have to grab that.
Mate, it's not great news about the Arsenal game at all. I just phoned the 12 pins and they said that they're not showing it because it's a 3 o'clock kickoff. I told you about that before. And when it's 3 o'clock, there's no television rights.
Yeah, I know, bro, but we gotta find a place that does it anyway. Like, I'm pretty sure that place Yucatan that I sent you, they will show it. That's what people are telling me. Can you check with them?
Yeah, the thing is that I've actually been trying to ring them for like the last hour, but the phone's permanently engaged.
Yeah, like even now, like it's boop, 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 boop.
Either way, I'm cautiously optimistic about the Yucatan because, like I said, some sources in a Arsenal Discord that I'm in, they are pretty confident that they showed those games.
I found a different number and I'm calling it. It's just ringing and ringing, but I'll stay on the line. Different one. Fucking hell, my mum's house is so cold. No, mate, they don't answer the phone at all. So I'm thinking maybe I'll go there. Like, I don't know, by about midday and see what the situation is there. And then I can tell you what the situation is. And then, yeah, we can go on from there.
Sounds good. I mean, I'm thinking like worst case scenario, it's cool just to kind of be around the stadium when people are going in and coming out after. And, yeah, just hopefully we find somewhere that we can watch it. I don't know. We're kind of like, we could always try to find just like a nice coffee shop with good Wi-Fi.
Oh mate, yeah, I'm just Westfield in Stratford. Yeah, so what I'm going to do now, I'm going to go over to Stoke Newington and I'm going to go and speak to the people in Yucatan and see what's going down, and then I'll let you know. And then I will probably find somewhere to eat because I'm hungry. And yeah, I'll be around, man. I try to stay somewhere where there's Wi-Fi and stuff. But yeah, we're on it. What do you think if we find a ticket seller? What's the price you would buy a ticket at?
To get in with the ticket seller, I'd say £100. What do you think?
Right, mate, I went to Yucatan and the guy was waiting for the place to open, some worker, and he said like if it's not televised, it's not going to be played, it's not going to be shown in there. Do you remember? Yeah. Mate, I just got to my buddy's place, and I think like if we're going to meet, yeah, let's meet at Finsbury Park tube station, not metro, tube station, and then we can like walk around from there. I mean, I went to Yucatan, man, and I spoke to an employee. He said they're not showing it, and it's actually illegal to show it. So there's got a big pub on the corner of a really, really sort of like busy place. Famous Arsenal club. Yeah, it's literally breaking the law. So, you know, mate, I did try. So, all right, buddy, I'm gonna make a move in a minute. So, like, just to dot the I's, cross the T's. It's the side where there's Arsenal World of Sport. Yes, like it used to be like a merchandise store outside. Don't know if it's still there. Maybe it is. Maybe it isn't. But that is the side, mate. So yeah, I'll be there. See you soon.
Champions!
Hey, so it's day 2 of my trip, and I'm now chatting with my friend Aziz. Aziz, maybe you can briefly tell the listener how we know each other.
So I know Tom because we were working together, and I'm currently living in the UK and I'm studying my master degree in Hull, which is in Yorkshire. And today we're together in London.
That's right, and this podcast's, the theme of it is London, so maybe you could talk about how much time you spent here and share some of your impressions of this city.
Well, I spend a lot of time in London. I usually come here twice, I would say once a month. And I would say it's an amazing city because it's just so multicultural, and there are a lot of activities to do. But also you get the chance to meet amazing people who just show who they are, and they're not afraid of displaying their own identities, and they're proud of it. So it's really nice to be in the city. Yeah.
So you're a gay man, and you've lived in Algeria, where you're from, and then we met in Russia, and now you're in England. How is the experience of your sexual side, which is only one part of you, but
Yeah.
how is that different being here?
I think it's liberating because you get to meet guys who are embracing themselves, and you get to meet part of your community. But at the same time, you can also, as I told you before, you encounter a darker side of London in terms of people taking drugs and mixing these drugs with sex as well. So it's not just about embracing yourself and being proud of it, but also there is a dark aspect to it, I would say. Yeah.
If you could give us maybe 2 images that come to your mind when I say London. One should be a very, very positive moment or experience that you had here, and one would be something darker and maybe even harrowing. Give us a vivid image for both if you can. I know it's a bit of an ask.
I think you just... So I was online and I was trying to find a date and meet someone, and all of a sudden there's someone who just messaged me, a guy, and he asked me to come to his house and have a dinner party. And as soon as I went there and I walked into his house, I just felt a sense of comfort because I was surrounded with men who were just like me and who were part of my community. And that was a positive moment for me because all my life I felt divorced and I felt separated from being part of a community. So it was nice being around these guys and talking about our experiences and getting to know them. But also I think one of the darkest moments is when I was going to have a sexual intercourse with someone, and I was asked to do drugs. And considering that I come from a very religious background, a Muslim background, that was a shock because I've never seen drugs in real life, and I did not know how to react to it. I don't have any judgment towards people who do drugs. I think everyone comes into that lifestyle through certain things, because of certain things in their lives, so I don't judge them. However, it was just taken me by surprise, and I've seen kind of a darker aspect of London is that people tend to mix things up, tend to mix sex and drugs, and it can be very dangerous because you lose a sense of yourself, you lose a sense of what love is and how you can enjoy yourself without being under influence. So yes.
Okay, thanks a lot, Aziz.
Yes, thank you.
Cheers.
This is day 3 of my son's visit. I've had a great time reconnecting with him and showing him around Taipei. Yesterday, we climbed Elephant Mountain. Hiking is not really my thing, but he enjoys that, so I was happy to accompany him. And I've introduced him to a lot of good food. And we went to Taipei 101. We've seen, the major tourist sites. So it's been very good. Today he's at the hospital. I'm working, but he's going to the hospital to get a COVID test so he can enter Japan without too much hassle. They're much more strict about that than other places are, even Taiwan. Anyway, I should be focusing on London since that's the topic of this podcast. Right now I'm thinking of Dr. Samuel Johnson's comment that when one is tired of London, one is tired of life. I wonder how you feel about that comment now. Do you care to react to that statement? When one is tired of London, one is tired of life. Is it true? Your friend Aziz's meditation on the darker side of London, of course, reminds me of William Blake's London. I wandered through each chartered street, near where the chartered Thames does flow, and mark in every face I meet marks of weakness, marks of woe. In every cry of every man, in every infant's cry of fear, in every voice, in every ban, the mine-forged manacles I hear. How the chimney sweepers cry, every blackening church appalls, and the hapless soldier's sigh runs in blood down palace walls. But most through midnight streets I hear how the youthful harlot's curse blasts the newborn infant's tear, and blights with plagues the marriage hearse. So I'm wondering, what sort of mind-forged manacles do you see evidence of in the London of 2023? As texting's resident etymologist, I suppose I should spend some time discussing the name of this great city that you are visiting. London, derived from the Latin Londinium, the capital of Roman Britain. And why did the Romans call this town they occupied Londinium? Well, according to Geoffrey of Monmouth, there was a King Lud, and the town, now known as London, was named after him. King Lud, some sort of Celtic chieftain, Welsh perhaps, before the arrival of those brutal Anglo-Saxons, of course. So there you go. The westernmost gate of London Wall was named Lud's Gate, or Ludgate, in honor of that aforementioned Celtic chieftain. And apparently there are still some traces of that name around Fleet Street, Ludgate Hill, Ludgate Circus, and so on. Maybe you can head over there and check it out. Take a picture for me. And while I'm giving assignments, maybe you can also visit Bloomsbury, where Virginia Woolf had her salon, which was visited by such luminaries as Bertrand Russell and D.H. Lawrence and others. And how about Sex, the boutique and clothing store run by Malcolm McLaren and Vivienne Westwood, the hangout where the young punks who would become the Sex Pistols would congregate. Is there anything still there? Has the building been demolished? Is there an historical marker? Maybe you can check that out as well. And for sentimental reasons, I'd like you to visit Notting Hill. I know someone who would very much appreciate it if you could take a picture of the blue door from the movie with Hugh Grant and Julia Roberts. London calling to the faraway towns. Now war is declared and battle come down. London calling to the underworld. Come out of the cupboard, you boys and girls. London calling. Now don't look to us. Phony Beatlemania has bitten the dust. London calling. See, we ain't got no swing except for the ring of the truncheon thing. The ice age is coming. The sun's zooming in. Meltdown expected. The wheat is growing thin. Engines stop running, but I have no fear, 'cause London is drowning and I live by the river. So much alike.
Composed upon Westminster Bridge, September 3rd, 1802, by William Wordsworth. Earth has not anything to show more fair. Dull would he be of soul who could pass by a sight so touching in its majesty. This city now doth, like a garment, wear the beauty of the morning, silent, bare. Ships, towers, domes, theatres, and temples lie open unto the fields and to the sky, all bright and glittering in the smokeless air. Never did sun more beautifully steep in his first splendor valley, rock, or hill. Ne'er saw I, never felt a calm so deep. The river glideth at his own sweet will. Dear God, the very houses seem asleep, and all that mighty heart is lying still. So I think Wordsworth speaks for me when he says, Earth has not anything to show more fair. Dull would he be of soul who could pass by a sight so touching in its majesty. And it also seems like a direct response to the Samuel Johnson quote that you quoted. I love London for its entertainment, and there's just so much to do here. If you go to like a event site, whether it be Time Out, Eventbrite, Resident Advisor, there's just always something going on. Doesn't matter what day of the week, and I love that. We started our day on Westminster Bridge. It was kind of our first real tourist day. The previous day we'd spent with Aziz, and still kind of recovering from the travel. But I promised Liliana that yesterday we would genuinely start to see the more cliche and iconic London sights. And we were accompanied by a audio travel guide by the prominent American travel writer Rick Steves. Some people might find him a bit kitschy or cringe, and I absolutely can see why. He tends to insert some pretty lame jokes, but I like that, and he's accessible, and for my wife, who's still a language learner, it's useful to kind of maintain that accessibility. So yeah, we started our tour there on Westminster Bridge, and that heart wasn't standing still particularly, the way that Wordsworth depicts it early in the morning, but it did have that fog and cloud that London is known for. And of course, it's an incredibly multicultural city now, so that I assume would be significantly different from Wordsworth's time, and I'll riff more about London's multiculturalism later. At the end of the bridge, there's an impressive bronze sculptural group of Boadicea and her daughters. Boadicea being a queen of the ancient British Iceni tribe, who led a failed uprising against the conquering forces of the Roman Empire in AD 60. She's considered a British national heroine and a symbol of the struggle for justice and independence. And Steves also notes that the Romans brutally raped her daughters, and I think were about to execute her, and she poisoned herself rather than suffer that ignominy. Ignominy. From Westminster Bridge, we entered Parliament Square, which is actually closed off and looking pretty much like a dirt. What's that one movie? Sandlot, like a sandlot. But we did pay homage to the imposing statue of Churchill, which I heard has a string of electricity running through it to prevent birds or to detract birds from shitting on his head. Don't know if that's true or not. But there's also a nice Gandhi statue, which I like in there, and which you'll always find little groups of Indians posing next to. From there, we walked along Whitehall, past 10 Downing Street, where the Honourable Rishi Sunak now presides. It's very modest if you compare it to something like the White House. But, yeah, it's interesting enough. Our tour eventually spat us out at Trafalgar Square. Trafalgar Square commemorates the Battle of Trafalgar, the British naval victory in the Napoleonic Wars over France and Spain. I apologize for these little Wikipedia interludes. And the impressive Nelson's column, which I tried to squeeze into a photo with Liliana, but repeatedly failed, despite lying down and really trying to get that angle super acute. Then we needed a little break, so we went to a cafe at Waterstones nearby. Waterstones is like the Barnes & Noble of England. Does Barnes & Noble even exist anymore? Let us know in the comments. And we had a piece of lemon drizzle cake. I had a bacon roll. Love me a bacon roll. And we gathered our energy and spirits for the upcoming visitation to the National Gallery, which I'll speak about next. So, just one quick note. As we were walking at one stage, there were 4 different buildings within eyesight that had the Ukrainian flag flying, so I'm going to leave that with no comment. So, the National Gallery, I think it was my first time there. I've been to the neighboring National Portrait Gallery, but that's closed at the moment for renovation. And it sits on top of Trafalgar Square. It's a neoclassical structure designed by the Greek Revival architect William Wilkins. The collection there is smaller than many European national galleries, but encyclopedic in scope, with most major developments in Western painting, from Giotto to Cézanne, represented. We spent most of our time with the Impressionist work. That's kind of our favorite period. We've got a lovely collection I think I've described on the pod before in the General Staff Building at the Hermitage in St. Petersburg. So, on this visit, some of the highlights included Van Gogh's sunflowers, or more specifically, vase with 15 flowers. It's really amazing just the way that he's portrayed different types of sunflowers in different angles, shapes. You still see that kind of flow that Van Gogh is known for. And just, I love the wilting, the flowers that are bending over, the flowers that are opening up, the thickness of the paint. It's really remarkable, and it seemed like the most popular piece at the museum, so a lot of tourists gathering around, but we still managed to get some good views and photos. Liliana also very much enjoyed wheat field with cypresses, another Van Gogh, and some other paintings which I'll just briefly mention included Monet's Water Lilies, Young Spartans Exercising by Edgar Degas, which included one boy pinching another boy's nipple. Then The Boulevard Montmartre at Night by Pizarro. I might not be pronouncing that right. I didn't bother to Google that one. The others I kind of did. The Umbrellas by Renoir. And Landscape with Polars by Cézanne. So yeah, some really nice impressionistic works. And I was relieved because I knew that this museum doesn't really go past 1900, so I just wasn't sure how much impressionism they would have. But yeah, I'm not really too massive on some older art. I much prefer impressionism onwards. So that was a nice experience, and from there the day grew more challenging. So this will probably be the last installment describing our Monday, March 6th. We left the National Gallery, and we were eating bananas. They had gotten a bit smudgy and squishy in the backpack. And then we had to find a place to dispose of them, but we were walking around a bit awkwardly in Trafalgar Square with these banana peels hanging from our hands. Finally, I found a rubbish bin. And the next plan was to do another audio tour, which I found called Theatreland Tour with Ian McKellen, which would be a history of London's West End. Sounded really promising. But I don't have data right now, although it claims to just work on GPS, but I was just a bit concerned about how well that would function. Either way, we started at TKTS, I believe it's called. Let me just Google that really quick. Yeah, it's an event ticket seller in Leicester Square. It's a place that my mom remembers fondly because they would always sell half-price tickets the day of the show. So you would go to this ticket seller, this ticket office, and not know what would be available, but you'd go anyway just for the chance to see a London production half price, and get that electricity that comes with going to a show. We also admired the Shakespeare statue, which is set also in Leicester Square. And then we set off on this Ian McKellen-led tour, but we quickly got lost. There were two Odeon cinemas bordering that square, and we followed the wrong one. Had issues with the GPS, and by now it was gently spitting, so we started getting a bit cold, and it was just less pleasant to walk. I tried to assuage my wife's stressed nerves by giving her some Ben & Jerry's ice cream, most notably fish food. It's a old school favorite of mine. And we had strawberry cheesecake as well. Outside, there was a young black man doing a kind of dramatic performance for a phone. So it definitely seemed like he was acting, almost like an audition tape. It was quite a dramatic monologue that included him talking about the size of the shit he had taken the day before, which had destroyed his asshole, completely blown it up. And I looked over and another guy was just like, oh. So we kind of managed to get on track thanks to Liliana, but the rain just was not really conducive to walking. By the way, this week is supposed to be the coldest week since all year, so nice timing, and waiting for the snow to arrive any moment. So we kind of abandoned this tour. We were starting to get on each other's nerves a little bit, although I was keeping it together thanks to my delicious antidepressants. And Liliana has just been struggling with her feet. Her shoulder was hurting. She didn't bring the right shoes, so we went to TK Maxx. In the States, it's TJ Maxx. I don't know why they changed it, but yeah, if you don't know, it's basically like discounted brand name clothes, but not always the coolest ones. But anyway, I found a few things for myself, most notably some boxer briefs and some thick woolen socks, which I'm sure you're fascinated by. And Liliana was busy looking for shoes, the classic me getting restless and her needing a lot of time. We ended up leaving without her getting anything. She was still pretty miserable, so we went back and we finally got her some shoes, which were Skechers, which I kind of scoffed at a little bit, but if they're comfortable, then fuck it. Yeah, we just didn't really have that much energy at that point. We did find a cool like Japanese shop, I can't remember the name, but it kind of had like some mixture of Uniqlo and IKEA vibes. We picked up some new slippers, which are crucial to our lives, feeling very middle-aged. So rather than going clubbing or to a comedy store, we are buying slippers. And then we popped out at Green Park, which is where you would get out to go to Buckingham Palace. Got out and it was deadly dark. It's interesting, just to be in the center of a city and so much darkness. But you actually have to walk through a segment of Green Park to get to Buckingham Palace, and again, it was cold and dark. So we just abandoned that and ended our evening like true middle-aged foodies. I saw M&S food, and it was beckoning for us, and that's better than any restaurant. So I showed Liliana this mecca of food. It's probably my favorite grocery store, maybe in the world. And I've got a couple factoids for you now about M&S. Marks and Spencer's was founded in 1884 by Michael Marks and Thomas Spencer in Leeds. I found out, this is rather interesting, that it was founded by a partnership between, I already said that kind of, but Michael Marks was a Polish Jew born in Slonim, now Belarus, who had migrated to Leeds. And Thomas Spencer was a cashier from the English market town of Skipton in North Yorkshire. So M&S currently has 959 stores across the UK, including 615 that only sell food products, and through its television advertising, asserts the exclusive nature and luxury of its food and beverages. I was not aware of that. Garth, were you aware of that? I was not aware of that. I've botched that quote somehow, but yeah. Yeah, the food there is just orgasmic. We spent £30 getting all those kind of like 3 for £8 deals or 2 for £5 deals, and we came home and just gorged ourselves on lots of little treats. I will name a few. We had a Mexican bean chili soup thing. We had a ploughman's salad thing with feta cheese and pickled onions. We had tzatziki. We had some red pepper hummus, some incredible sourdough bread, cheddar cheese. I mean, we know that the cheese in Russia is pretty shit because of sanctions. It has been for years. And English cheddar is just so flavorful and crumbly. It's just a wonderful experience. We had some elderflower sparkling, which was very nice. Some blue corn tortilla chips. I mean, just the access to food in this country. Foods that I'm partial for. Wow. It's just being close to Marks and Spencer's. I mean, I tell people that in Russia, one of the best things about living there is this shop Vkusville, which is like a health food shop, very good, and a chain. Vkusville means like Tastesville. And but M&S food, it just crowns everything for me. It's a bit pricey, but wow, it's so good. So I've rambled on long enough, given you a little bit of info about our Monday, and today we're going to the mall. I know that sounds lame, but again, since sanctions, we just don't have access to kind of cheap and decent quality cool shops for clothing that you get in Europe. You know, shops like H&M left, Zara left, Marks and Spencer's left, so we're gonna go shopping, get some essentials. It's just so much easier for me to shop outside of Russia. And then tonight we'll be seeing a revival of Cabaret, which I'm very excited about. It's a immersive experience, and it should be nice and flamboyant and powerful, and so yeah, one of the crowns of our trip, I hope. So I'll be back with a full review of that. Mark, how are things with your son? Is he still there? Maybe you could briefly describe some of the most impressive tourist spots in Taipei. Even if it is a London-themed episode, I think it could be a nice compliment. And thanks again for the really cool songs that you added to this pod, the poetry readings, the etymology section. All of it was really enjoyable for me. And wish everybody a blessed day for now. Peace. Captain's Log, March 8th, International Women's Day. Just an update on the excursion, travel, journey, adventure of Tom Bethel. Yesterday, we visited the largest mall in London called Westfield. It delighted my wife. We started the day in M&S again, which I gave you guys quite a bit of info about with regards to the food section, but we were in the clothing part, which is also quite good. I used to think that the style there was quite old fogey, but maybe I am an old fogey. Anyway, I picked up some trousers and underwear, and now I will go on a brief aside about briefs. My waist size is increasing, possibly due to weight gain from antidepressants. So yeah, I'm kind of transitioning now from 32 to 34. But the weird thing is about underwear is like large is supposed to correlate with 36 to 38. So I bought large, but they're very tight, so it's confusing. I bought large at TK Maxx, right? And then, so yesterday I had this dilemma, because you can't try on underwear. Do I go large again and risk another pair of tight, or do I go XL? And so Liliana told me to go XL, so now I'm XL. And I also got some pretty sick shoes at the Adidas shop nearby. So I didn't have much time, but I was efficient. And yeah, I left Liliana to do her own thing. After that, I came home and did a therapy session with my new yoga therapist. That included like a 20-minute Yoga Nidra Shavasana session, like live. And he wants me to do these exercises once a day, which is cool. And then in the evening, we went to Cabaret at the Playhouse, which has now been transformed into the Kid Kat Club. I was a little bit in my head, which is one of the risks of being me at this stage in my incarnation. And that was a bit frustrating not to be able to completely lose myself in the show. But the show was good and not great. I'm not exactly sure how much like my mood informs me to say that. But yeah, I just felt it was a very slick production in terms of it was immersive. So we came in and there were like burlesque dancers everywhere that were like ambigender or gender amorphous or some other gender. And quite enjoyed that. That was cheeky. So you could go to different parts of the theater and there'd be accordion players, violinists, people scantily clad, touching themselves, and yeah, that was cool. And then, yeah, the costumes were fantastic. Beautiful cast of men and women. But just emotionally, it didn't really grab me. Sally Bowles was played by a woman who I don't know at the top of my head, but she's starred in Sex Education. And the guy who played the MC was in Cruella. He like sang a song in Cruella. But yeah, it just didn't didn't feel gritty enough, didn't feel desperate enough to really move me. I was thinking how being at an original Kit Kat club in Berlin at that time would be such a rawer experience. And it also just kind of made me think about how when I started going to raves, it was hard for me to go back to going to concerts because they felt so like corporate structured. Like you've got your ticket booth and then this is where you have to queue for beer, and yeah, it's just like it felt a little bit sterile despite intending to be like the opposite. It's supposed to be raunchy and sexualized, but it ends up feeling a bit, I don't know, just not raw enough for me, I guess, in yesterday's mood. Maybe the writing just isn't penetrating enough. I'm greedy when I go to a musical in West End to cry or to leave absolutely inspired, and I can't say that I did. But it's a cool experience to take Liliana to a musical regardless. It is a unique thing to do. So we woke up to pretty strong snow, which is very bizarre for this time of year, but quite pretty. Did my yoga, and today should be fun. We're going to meet my friend Joe, an aspiring filmmaker and very great person, and some family friends, Eve and Chris. So it'll be a social day, and who knows, maybe I can get them to say a few sage words about Londinium. Love to the listener, love to Mark, and more to come soon. Peace. So I'm in a delicious Italian restaurant in London right now called L'Artista. Just feasted on some salsiccia. And I'm going to chat with my friend Joe Greenwood a little bit. Joe has lived in London and currently lives in Brighton. So, Joe, when I say London, what do you think?
I think of misery. I think of a false sense of toughness. You know what I mean? Like I feel like the people here think that they're tough because they live here, because if it's hard, and they think that if you can't hack it here, then you're not tough, which is ludicrous considering. And I think you can agree with this, is that I've lived in much tougher places than this. And there's a level of arrogance. However, food is incredible. And what's on offer, culture-wise, is exactly what I would want. I think there's a lot of exploitation of the people that live here. And at a certain point I wanted out of that.
Okay. So a simple question, what are the best and worst things about London as a city?
The best is specialisation, like specialised places you just don't get anywhere else, that you could and should get. But the worst thing is...
You're talking about restaurants?
Restaurants, shops, experiences, specialised, unique things that you can't get anywhere else. Like I just think about, for example, a big thing for me is rep cinema, so going to cinemas that are showing older films, and outside of London and Manchester, there's nothing really in the UK. There's very, very, very little on offer, and that's sad. It's sad that gets denied.
So subcultures do well here.
Subcultures, yeah, exactly. So you have that here, which is great. The negative side of that is it gets pushed out for blocks of flats. You constantly see building here. That's all you ever see is building. And you just don't have... And basically, what are we losing for that, essentially? because this kind of like sets the tone for everyone else. So if that's the tone for London, that becomes the tone for everyone else in the end. It's like, why would I give this building to this guy who's going to open up this restaurant or this shop, or I could turn it into these couple things, and I could just sell it to some guy for millions of pounds so he can build it into flats that are empty that he can just sit on because he knows the value is going to stay the same. So it's that dynamic which is the most irritating, because then in the end, what makes this place worth living? You know, and what does that make anywhere worth living? So like when I think about when I lived in Lima, like there was a lot of things wrong with that place, of course there is, but like there was still like really unique, specialized things about each area and neighborhood. And the place that was least interesting was the place that was trying to most be like a Western city. You know what I mean? Like it's most trying to be like a London or like a, you know, like, oh, this is a place where all the Western people can come to. And it's like, why would any place actually want to cater to that? And then I think about a place like Tokyo, or Japan in general, which is so like hyper itself that it feels like nothing can really penetrate that and change it. And I think that's a great thing about a place like Tokyo, is that it can only ever be what it is. You know, of course, obviously Japan has its issues with hyper-capitalist sort of ideas, which
and nationalism
and whatever else, but it still has a very unique character, which is nurtured as well, but within that I just don't think would be nurtured here at all because of the mentality of this place.
Can you tell us about one really positive experience and one darker, more dire experience you had in this city, in which the city itself is a massive part of that narrative?
So my mate lives in Hackney, and I don't know, I'll say this is maybe both. My mate lives in Hackney, and there was a pub there. And he was just like, oh, Joe, come to this pub. They've got this space out back where they do events. You should come sometime. I was just like, okay, I'll come. And eventually, like, he called me. He's just like, come on, we'll go. I was like, all right, yeah, fine, go. And we go out to this pub or whatever else, and then go out to this back bit. And there's like a building with like, it's clearly like crappy sort of like office things that they turned into like a social club. And there was a stage there, and I was just like, okay. So I sit down, like I get a drink, and I look around, and me and my mate are like the only two white people there. So I am sticking out a bit, like a sore thumb. And on the comes the stage, this woman comes out on stage. There's a stripper, and you're like, okay, for fuck's sake, like, okay, not what I wanted. And then,
what did the stripper look like?
She was quite attractive, pretty tall, black woman. Yeah, she was just like a stripper. And then this guy came out, and he had like this box he came out with. And like I was just like, oh, he's like a helper. He was not a helper. He takes his shirt off. By the way, this bloke is like 4'9". Yeah? Takes his shirt off. He takes his trousers off, and I've never seen anything like it. He starts having sex with this woman on the stage, right? In dog position, Tom.
Okay, thank you.
I'm making very intense eye contact with you right now, Tom, as I tell this story. And this second guy comes on stage. I'm like, oh, fuck's sake, I know what I'm about to see. I don't know what I'm about to see. So this guy is quite short. So this second guy takes the guy and turns him upside down, so he's doing a handstand, and he keeps going as he's inside this woman. And at this point, like, all the other guys are in there sort of like, they're not really paying attention, they're smoking a spliff, whatever else. And I'm like looking, like, what the fuck am I looking at here? And I turn to my mate Johnny, who's got tears running down his eye, running down his cheek, as he knows how uncomfortable I am. And I said, like,
I mean, he's got tears for you. Like
he's crying laughter.
Oh, laughter.
He's laughing so much that he's crying. I said, like, why did you bring me here? And he said, I thought it'd be funny. And he said, like, it's not. And I said, like, can we leave? And he said, like, no, that'd be a bit rude if we left right now. Like, they'd look at you going, like, this is really rude. I was just like, okay, well, I guess we'll stay for a little bit. There's a natural ending to this. That second guy comes back, turns the guy back round again. And then the second guy takes his knob out and just starts masturbating onto this woman who's on stage. They both finish, and then they just walk off with like no acknowledgement of the crowd. And then some other woman came out and I was just like, I'm not seeing this again, so I just got up and left. That's the end of my story.
Well, my son left for Japan yesterday, so I'm now able to respond to your messages. Sorry for the delay. I'll just say it was a great visit. I think we talked more in 4 days than we had talked in his previous 25, almost 26 years of life. So it was very good, very healing in many ways. I like your use of the Wordsworth poem on Westminster Bridge, and it is very interesting to think about his perspective and contrast it with your own perspective in 2023, and then like imagine him at the same site in the current day. What would he think? What would his impressions be? But as I was listening, I was also kicking myself for not remembering to give you another assignment while you were over there. You were very likely very close to Abbey Road, and I wanted you to go check out Abbey Road Studios, walk across the zebra crossing, as they call it here in Taiwan. Do they say the same thing there? Anyway, I guess you were not able to do that, or you didn't do that. But if you have the chance to go back over there, please do. Yeah, Rick Steves is corny, but I think he means well. And you got to give the guy credit for being such an adventurer and being willing to travel the world and explore and share his discoveries with people. So it's all good. Boudica, the warrior princess. Yes, I love her. I remember I used to teach my Latin students about her when we discussed Roman Britain. One of the things the Celts did when defending their homeland from the attacks by the Roman invaders was to smear their faces with woad. You remember like the blue face of William Wallace and Braveheart? That's woad. It's a blue dye from a plant. I don't know if Boudica did that herself, but probably she did. Just imagine all these blue-faced savages facing off against the Imperial Army. I know which side I'd be rooting for. May the birds of the air shit without respite on the bald pate of Winston Churchill. You didn't mention it in your audio clips related to the National Gallery, but you did send a pic of the great Hans Holbein portrait, The Ambassadors. And I agree with you that this portrait could be used as like an alternative logo for the Texting podcast. But those two characters depicted, which is Mark Will and which is Tomek, are the roles ever reversed, and why? What are your thoughts on that? I know TJ Maxx. It's kind of like a Ross or a Marshalls, right? The Ross tagline is dress for less. So it is odd that in the UK they call it TK Maxx. Like, why? Did they do market research and discover that Brits respond better to the K than the J, or Americans respond better to the J than the K? What's going on? That's an important question. If you're an old fogey, I don't know what that makes me. M and S. It's amazing how something with such modest beginnings morphs into a corporate monstrosity. I mean, however much you like the store and the things that you can find there, it's still nothing like what the original founders could have imagined, I'm guessing. It reminds me of the backwoods Arkansas family of wholesalers that created the Walmart empire. Who would have guessed? I can imagine what that cabaret production must have been like. You described it as slick, and so I have a very good idea of what the performance was probably like, and I, like you, I would have been disappointed and unmoved for the most part. But the interesting thing about cabaret and Sally Bowles and so on is that the play, the original play, is based on the Christopher Isherwood novel Berlin Stories, and Isherwood was friendly with David Bowie in later years, and apparently the host of the Kit Kat Club that you mentioned, that character was very likely the inspiration for Bowie's Thin White Duke. So that's some interesting trivia. At this point, I should probably discuss my very limited personal experience with the City of London, which is our focus. I've only been one time. This was 30 years ago on the way back from a trip to Greece, on the way back to the States. We had a stop over there. It's basically a night and a day. Like we flew into Gatwick, spent the night at a nice kind of guest house, I guess. And then the next day we rode around on the red double-decker bus doing the touristy things. We must have ridden the tube. This is a university group I was with. And at night, we went to, would it have been the West End Theater District? I guess so. And we saw a Seamus Haney play, Dancing at Luenza, which was premiering at that time in the, when would it have been, early 90s. And then we must have spent the night there. So I guess it was 2 nights and a day. Then we flew back to the States after that. But I always, we did go to a pub, I think. So I had that experience as well. And I remember going into a McDonald's and like the teenagers that were waiting on me kept saying what I heard as "Hey, please," but apparently they were saying "May I help you, please?" But it sounded to me like "Hey, please," so I was befuddled and confused. But I think I eventually ordered my fucking Big Mac or whatever it was. Anyway, I don't have a lot to share on that front, but I enjoyed my brief stay there, and I always wanted to go back. But hearing your friend Joe's comments on the city makes me think that maybe I was idealizing it, or maybe I am idealizing it. Although my Canadian friend Stefan lived there for several years, mostly working at the Hard Rock Cafe, and he loved it. He says it's his favorite place in the world, and he tells the story of Queen's Brian May, who would often come to the Hard Rock, bring a large entourage with him, and never pay the bill and never tip. So Brian May is a dickhead. Music fans, according to my friend.
Hello, it's 12:50 a.m. and we've just departed from Tallinn on a pretty basic coach. Haven't done a audio report for a while, so this one might be rather long, and I'm just basically going to tell you guys what I've been doing yesterday and how today's gone. Hopefully there'll be something of interest, and maybe I'll make some pithy observations along the way. Hashtag Bill O'Reilly's favorite word, pithy. So, yesterday was just like, shit, it's our last full day together. We're gonna be super ambitious, we're gonna go. Definitely came at a cost in the sense of not as much time to imbue ourselves with the beauty of the moment. And but it kept my ruminations away and my brooding mind away, and I'm very kind of comfortable in that task-oriented checklist approach, even if it's not really the way to travel. But I just hope you know. Anyway, enough of that. So we started the day. I'm in this Brits in St. Petersburg Telegram group. I may have mentioned that before. It's about 100 people in there, and it's kind of nice, to have some common people living this strange experience of being in Russia at the present moment in that group. So anyway, someone on there asked if I could meet his friend and deliver an iPhone. So we met this guy outside a vinyl shop in Camden. The vinyl shop was my doing. Nice enough guy. He wanted to linger and chat more, but we just didn't have time with our agenda, so picked up the iPhone, perused the vinyl a little bit. They didn't have much hip-hop and electronic, which is kind of what I was more keen to dig through, so kept going, ate at a chain called Tortilla, which specializes in California burritos. Ate a large quantity of fibrous contents. It was pretty good. Yeah. And bought some Mexican tapatio sauce, which will come back into the story later, but not through diarrhea. And then the next stop, which is pretty cool, something I've always wanted to do, is to go to the public gallery at Parliament. I googled the night before. They were in session. The main topics were going to be Women's International Day, and then there was meant to be a debate about proposal for a non-smoking day. But yeah, it just sounded fun, and thought we'd give it a shot. So we went to the tube stop at Westminster, found the entrance, the Cromwell entrance, went through some pretty rigorous, like airport-style security, got a badge and a green sign that we were headed for the public gallery. Didn't need a ticket or anything, which is pretty cool. And they did confiscate the chili sauce, though. I mean, they gave me a receipt and said I could come back for it, but yeah, so the chili sauce made a second appearance. And I was casually harangued for wearing an Arsenal top because the security guy was a Spurs fan. Once we were in, you know, it was pretty regal main building. Apparently the Queen had lay there for, I don't know, 10 days or 15 days after her passing. Some plaques on the floor. Impressive old roof, wooden roof, and, you know, stone walls. Some stained glass and plaques, all that good stuff. Paintings, murals. I was in the halls of power. You know, I have a mix of wariness and awe at places like that, but mainly just trying to appreciate the beauty and the history. So there were simultaneously two debates we could view. We started out by entering the House of Commons. It was very empty. I saw maybe 15 people present. I'm not sure if Congress is generally like that in the US, but yeah, it seemed more like one of those things that people are just trying to get their message on record rather than actually participate in some meaningful debate. So there were some women making statements about and they were almost all women MPs for International Women's Day. That was the topic in the House of Commons. So they were just kind of making some general statements about women needing better workplace conditions, better protection from the police, you know, fairly benign and important messages, but no debate, really, you know, no debate. And yeah, I was a bit disappointed that there wasn't a more robust attendance or back and forth, so we just stayed for about 10 minutes. It's kind of cool to think about how this is where, like, question time takes place with the Prime Minister, and imagining some of the more lively exchanges that I've watched taking place there. And cool that the public are allowed in, even if it's very clear that we're not allowed to make any kind of noises or gestures. From there we went into the House of Lords, which is actually a little bit more crowded, interestingly. You probably know that it's basically just a symbolic chamber. I'd like to know a little bit more about who qualifies and kind of what their motivations are for participating. But they were discussing the current climate of strikes in the UK and the difference between between different levels of disruption, like what should qualify as like emergency services versus, you know, like what should be legally required to keep functioning in the UK as different people strike, whether it's nurses, different transport people. So I think it's a real concern that they can shut down vital services, and how to strike a balance between giving people the right to strike and ensuring that vital services are provided. So again, pretty boring in the way it was presented, but that chamber was impressive as well, more ornate, more grandiose. And then we did find this non-smoking debate in another small room that was more like just a regular business room called the Westminster Hall. Hung out there for about 5 minutes, and hit the coffee shop there, where the coffee machine was experiencing some violent eruptions, and they couldn't turn it off. It's like, you know, the thing that kind of sprays out that whips up the milk. Well, that thing had become unleashed, and they couldn't turn it off, and it was kind of funny watching that unfold. From there, we did a quick walk through. Hold on, we're pulling over, so maybe this would be a good time for me to stop for a sec. So yeah, then we bulleted through St. James Park, which leads you to Buckingham Palace. Lots of duckies and some black swans, squirrels, lots of squirrels. From my experience taking groups of European students there in the past, this is like the thrill of their day. It's just the squirrels. It's more hypnotizing than any sight they see. A lot of French kids being kind of obnoxious there yesterday. I was particularly affronted when some kids were giving Haribo gummy worms to these ducks, because yeah, it's fucked up. But made it to Buckingham Palace, took a few snapshots, obligatory snapshots. Flag was flying. I don't know if that means that the royals are in residence. I thought I knew something like that, but yeah. From there we walked through Green Park and stopped at Waterstones, which is the largest bookstore in London. It's 5 floors. Pretty nice. And I also got the news that I've been offered a contract renewal for my job, which was great news because it was quite late to be receiving this offer. And so teachers were starting to get nervous about the solubility of the school, but it seems all good. From there, we continued on to Soho, and I promised Liliana that we would check out one of the Hare Krishna temples, so we did. It was very small, but intimate. Liliana was pleased to be there, and then we ate at the neighboring vegetarian restaurant. It's kind of a common thing for temples to be linked with a veggie restaurant, which I think they end up getting all the income from and cooking as well. So had some spicy chili paneer and some dal, and then we sprinted to 3 different vinyl shops. Didn't manage to find anything, but nice to hear some beats, and found one record shop I definitely would like to return to. I think it was called Phonica, and very electronic music based. So, and with each vinyl they had like a nice description on the vinyl, like describing the type of music, and yeah, so I really appreciated that. And we had to sprint to get to Sadler's Wells, which is where we were going to see the ballet. There was going to be a performance called Tilda Peck and Friends. Tilda Peck apparently is a principal dancer in the New York City Ballet, and she had put together this repertoire of not all the it was like 4 different performances of different lengths. She'd worked with different choreographers, brought dancers from New York. It was the European debut of this show, and it was outstanding. I preferred it to Cabaret. Just love watching dance, especially more experimental and contemporary dance. one number that was particularly memorable had two vocalists singing a cappella. They were using like looping tracks to create really multi-layered hypnotic sounds. It was a black guy who kind of like had a Bobby McFerrin vibe a little bit to him, and a white woman. And the dancing was a blend of tap, ballet, with some hip-hop elements, and it went on for about 20 minutes, and it was just incredible. The dancing was so high quality, the creativity was unrivaled, and it inspired me to chisel my body more. So I've been putting on a little bit of weight with the old antidepressants, and I want my body to be sculpted like a dancer's. So Liliana loved it as well, and it was inspiring in a way that cabaret wasn't. The final number used all music by James Blake, who I really like. He's a British electronic artist, you could say, but he's very varied in his production. Some of his work is more like piano ballads, crooning, melodramatic voice, and others are really interesting, glitchy, wonky electronic beats. I've been a fan of his since before he blew up, and the choreography really worked well with it. There was this sample from Andre from Outkast, with this like really hard house beat, and it was just sick. It was so sick. So that was basically how yesterday went. Sadler's Wells is like the cool spot to go see dance. It's the alternative place, so it wouldn't be like the Royal Ballet Company would have more traditional productions, and this one is more open to alternative fringe style productions. I'm not sure how entertaining this is going to be for people, just giving them my little explanations, but I'm trying. So I hope you find something noteworthy in here. Today was our last day. We luckily got an extension on our checkout time for our Airbnb. So we've been nervous about baggage allowances, as is often the case when you go somewhere and you start to buy stuff. So we went and bought a suitcase at the old TK Maxx, the K being crucial, as Mark pointed out. Then I helped Liliana check into a nearby hotel because we had to leave the Airbnb, and she's going to stay one more night herself in London. And I said goodbye to her and started my journey. So two rides to Tottenham Hale Station, Stansted Express train to Stansted, and flight to Tallinn, tram from the Tallinn airport to the coach station. Then I found my favorite romantic haunt, which is this 24-hour little cottage restaurant next to the bus station where they have like 5 dishes. I ordered a schnitzel and some kefir. It's just such a surreal place because it's quite dark inside, just a few tables, no music. It feels like a place that the Beats would love, you know. Feels like a place out of time, and I am sufficiently full now for this final leg of my journey. So I'm on kind of a basic coach right now. It's a 7-hour coach ride. I think I maybe mentioned. We'll probably spend 3 hours of it at the border. Not looking forward to that, but it is what it is, and I'm going to be arriving early Saturday morning, so at least Saturday will be just an indulgent day of chilling and editing the podcast, and yeah, it should be a relaxing day before I hit the lesson plans again on Sunday. So that's a brief picture. Liliana spent the afternoon by herself. She went to the Sherlock Holmes Museum around Baker Street. Then I sent her to a Twinings tea shop where you can buy a variety of cool teas. And then I sent her to the Somerset House, which is another beautiful building in that area. And we realized that's where this like immersive Van Gogh exhibition is taking place. And she was there too late to enjoy it today, but she plans to go back there tomorrow. And then she'll fly out late tomorrow night. So, yeah, as I said, it's a pretty tame recounting of my experience, but all is well. And hope to be getting a report from Liliana as well of her impressions before we wrap this thing up. So, love to Mark, love to the listener, and I'll probably have some final thoughts to add tomorrow. Peace.
Millions of people swarming like flies round Waterloo Underground. But Terry and Julie cross over the river where they feel safe and sound. And they don't need no friends as long as they gaze on Waterloo sunset. They are in paradise. Waterloo sunset's fine as long as they gaze on Waterloo sunset. They are in paradise. The Marxist phrase, parliamentary cretinism, comes to mind when I listen to your description of what you observed in those hallowed halls of British Parliament. The Romans really did win, didn't they? The optimates and populares became the House of Lords and the House of Commons, which in turn became the Senate and the House of Representatives. All a shadow play to keep us suckers in check. Where is the new Boudica who will rise up and overthrow these oppressors of ours? I woke up in a Soho doorway, a policeman knew my name. He said, you can go sleep at home tonight if you can get up and walk away. I staggered back to the underground and the breeze blew back my hair. I remember throwing punches around and preaching from my chair. Now who are you? Are you? Who are you? Tell me who are you? Are you? Who are you? Oh, tell me who are you? I really want to know. Oh, I really want to know. Come on, tell me who are you? Congratulations on the new contract. I look forward to visiting you in St. Petersburg during the next Chinese New Year break and freezing my balls off. Oh man, I would love to go to that Sherlock Holmes Museum. I recently purchased the collected works of Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, and I look forward to making my way through all 4,000 pages, or however many there are. And speaking of Baker Street,
Hello, everyone. This is the last recording. I'm exhausted. I've been working on editing the podcast for like 7 hours. Put together like 52 different voice clips, some music excerpts, and it's a labor of love. And yeah, I'm happy that I have this as a souvenir of the trip, even if I rarely go to the past anyway. Strange thing, the act of creating something that you rarely go back to. But yeah, there's a strange satisfaction that comes with it, so that's the drug, I guess. And trying to beautify our lives, trying to beautify them. I was going to say our banal lives, but why say that? They're not. Yeah, last leg of the journey went surprisingly smooth. Was only held at the Russian border for like 15 minutes. The border guard, FSB agent, was friendly. We chatted about the area where I live in Peter, but in a pleasant way. And just told him I was a teacher and so on. And because I had already been through that border, the Estonian border, before, they had everything on record. So they didn't need to type everything back into that 1980s desktop computer. So yeah, besides needing to crap the whole journey, it's been good. And I'm less intimidated about these border crossings now. So who knows what's to come, but it was a great week. And I look forward to another travelogue in the future. London, thank you. You're incredibly expensive. Someone's probably getting rich off of all that money without putting in too much labor. I don't know how people afford the transport, for example, but yeah, I want to thank Mark. I want to thank my wife, Liliana. Thank Aiden, thank Aziz, thank Joe, and thank my parents for hooking up the Airbnb. So, hope you guys found something in the episode to stimulate your fancies, and on to the next one. Peace.
Texting.